Hey, what's with the keys? You know what it means. This is a key lesson. This is one of the more important lessons in the whole course. So today, part 2 of our lecture on parts ordering application. And what we're going to do today is focus in on how to error check some of our inputs by incorporating if statements from before, you'll probably remember those, and a new concept called repetition where we're going to use a loop command. All that and more today. So here's our familiar parts application. We've been working on it for the last couple of lectures and added a couple of little twists in it this time, and I just want to show you them first, and then we'll obviously go through the logic and the reasoning for them. So I press a part number that I want to order, and maybe I want to type in some junk. Let's see what it does. It yells at me now. Only accepts medium, large, or small. Okay. So if I don't follow the rules, it's not going to let me continue. So I follow the rules. Now it's entering a quantity. Well, I'm going to type in something stupid, -4. Won't let me type in -4. Okay, so I've got to type in something legitimate, and then it tells me the final bill. So that's the idea today. We're going to check for mistakes, and if we do have a mistake, repeat. So there's the two key concepts: selection, if statements, and repeating, loops. So in the resources for today's lecture, you'll see two files. One of them is called Selection Repetition Primer, and the other one, which we will come back to, you saw me demonstrate it a few seconds ago, IndexBR. Okay, so make sure you have those files ready to go. So what I'm going to do with this simple introductory example is introduce you to some of the more complicated expressions in if statements, because we've seen a couple of those, and introduce a very basic repetition structures. And we'll go straight to the code, and then we'll show you how they work, because you have to appreciate what's going on in the background to understand the answers. So let's go to the developer and Visual Basic, and we'll double click on sheet 1. And these are the buttons for the if statement. So let me go back for a second. That's these two right here. Oh, typed in an age. Let's type in an age. Young. Okay. Let's type it again. 67. Senior. Okay, so what's going on there? What's going on? Let's take a look at the code. So we'll go back now. And the first one, the age one, we obviously asked for some input. So the person types in a number. And now there's this word again, if, and then the condition. So this one's saying if the age you typed in was bigger than 0 and less than or equal to 18, then I'm going to consider you young. Okay, so notice both conditions have to be true. So if you typed in 22, that is not between 0 and 18. So it would skip this one and go to the next one and say, hey, listen, 22, is that bigger than 18? And less than 64? Yes, it is. So then we would say you're an adult. Now, if these are both false, the last else doesn't have an if condition on it, so it automatically defaults to the last condition, and we consider you a senior. Okay, so notice how these if statements start up. If, then, else if, then, and the last one's else. Now, if you have more than 3 conditions, you can do another else if and continue them as you go along. Okay, so there's the first one. Let's slide down to the next one. In this one, we also illustrate a compound condition, but we use a new word, or, as opposed to and, A-N-D. So in this one, we ask for a quantity, okay? And if the quantity is exactly 5 or 10, the discount's going to be $2.50 for this fictitious store that sells hats. But what if you typed in a 7? Well, a 7's not a 5, and it's not a 10. So the discount is a big fat 0. Okay, so or one or the other can be true. Okay, so if you typed in a 5, great, you get $2.50 discount. If you typed in a 10, that's great. If neither one of these is true, you typed in a 7, like I said, then it drops down to the next if statement. And we'll give that a run just to make sure you realize how it works. So if I type in 5, okay, I get a 2.5% discount. If I type in 10, I also get a 2.5% discount. If I type in anything else, then I get no discount. All right, now the completely new stuff, okay? Haven't seen this before. When you do a lot of computer programming, the neat thing about a computer is that it can run forever, all right? It can repeat things over and over again. It doesn't get bored, not like a human, right? That's why robots are so good. So in computer programming, there are loops. Some of them actually use the word loop, some of them use other things. I'm going to show you a basic kind of loop that's part of VBA. In this first loop, you notice the word do, and you notice the word loop. Everything between those two will repeat forever and ever until you sort of say get out. All right, and there's a special word to get out. So in this particular example, we're asking for a shirt size, and you only are allowed to type small, medium, or large. If you type in anything else, it's not going to be accepted. So here's how you say that. You say if the shirt size, whatever you responded to here, is equal to small, or, and you have to keep repeating the word shirt size. You can't just say or medium. You have to, that's a common mistake for new students. You have to repeat the word or equals medium or shirt size equals large. So any one of those three is good. Then you can exit the do. You can leave this trapped environment, okay? Now, if you don't type one of those three words, you cannot leave, all right? And I even yell at you by saying, please enter one of those three. And the computer says, here's the loop, go back up to the top and do it again and again and again. You do not leave until you type one of those three words. Okay, let's take a look at it. So I press here, it asks for a shirt size, and I type in junk the first time. It yells at me, says, no, please enter one of those words. Now I'll type in a proper word, large, and I exit, and then I can continue from there in my program. Now there's lots of different forms of loops. Here's another one. This one here is a do loop until, and right in the last part of it is the condition to exit, so to speak, okay? So this one's basically saying do everything between here and here until the price is greater than 0. So what's going on here is you're going to ask for a price, any kind of number, and if a person types in a -5, -100, whatever, it's going to say, well, I'm going to keep doing this until you give me a number bigger than 0, like a 1, 2, 3, or whatever. And if you don't, I'm going to keep asking you the same question over and over again until you do give it to me. Let's test it out. So I press here, I type in -3. It's going to keep asking me. I type in a 5, that's good, and I'm done. Okay, so there you have a really, really basic introduction to more complicated if statements and looping structures which allow us to repeat things just in case we don't get the right answer. And now we're going to incorporate these ideas to our parts ordering application that we've been working on the last little while. So we really have been beating this application to death. We've been going over it over and over and over. So I'm not going to overemphasize too many of those ideas that we've covered already. We're going to focus in on this new dummy proofing. But again, let me just give you a sample run so you appreciate what's going on. So now we're going to choose from a parts list. Okay, we're going to type in a size, and if we type in something that's not nice, it's going to yell at us and then ask us to type in something nice. Then for quantity, if we type in something bad, it's going to yell at us and then ask us to type something good. Okay, we also have over here a section where we update the table. Remember, we did that in the last lecture too. And again, if you type something bad, all right, it's going to yell at you and ask to type it in again. All right, and again, if we type in an incorrect price, it's going to keep asking us until we type in a proper price, and then it accepts it. All right, let's take a good look at each one. So we'll go to the developer, and right now it's still locked up, so we'll press review, and we will unprotect the sheet. And now back to developer, and we can go to design mode, and we are back in action. Double click, we enter the code world, and again, it's basically exactly like the last one, but except now each part where you have to ask the person a question, we're going to error check it. Sometimes we call it dummy proofing. We will not accept bad answers. So you notice here I have a do loop, as we've just covered, and it's asking for a part size, and it will only accept those sizes. And if they give me one of those sizes, you get to leave the loop. You're trapped in this endless cycle until you give me a good answer. Then we do the same thing for quantity. We ask for a number. If the number is a negative, we yell at you. I even yell at you for typing in a 0. So I want at least 1. If one of those two is happening, we're going to yell at you. Now, if one of those two doesn't happen, means things are going good. It wasn't less than 0. It wasn't 0. Then we're going to exit this loop. Okay, so kind of a bit more complicated one that has double checks. Okay, once they pass all those tests, we feed the numbers into our tables, and in this example, I'm back to just having the lookups right in the cells. But there is our first application of a little bit of dummy proofing when we work with those numbers. Let's go back and now do this one. We'll double click on this one. And this is where we're going to go right into the table and modify the original prices. And again, I'm not going to spend any time explaining this. We've covered it many times. Here's where we're going to focus. This one, just because I wanted to try a different kind of loop. Remember, we had just your regular do loop where you say exit do to get out. Here is a do loop until. So this one here, you're asking for a part size, and we're going to loop until we either get a small or a medium or a large. If we don't get one of those, we go back up to the top and repeat the loop until this is true. Same with the price. We have a do loop until, just to show you a different way to loop. This one's saying if you give me a price and we loop until the price is bigger than 0. If it isn't bigger than 0, we yell at you and you have to do it again. Actually, we don't yell at you in this one. We just keep bugging you to type it in. Okay, and then the rest of it, we feed the numbers back into the proper locations, and then we concatenate and change the table. Okay, so a little nice introduction. You're going to see this over and over again. So you're saying, oh, this is very short for a new concept, but you're going to see it's repeated in various applications for the next little while before we get to the end of the course. Okay, so nice little applications of these new skills incorporated in our parts ordering application. Okay, so there you have it. On to another idea now. Actually, you're going to give you a little challenge to try now that you have all these skills. Thanks for listening. Take care. We'll see you in the next lecture.